How it began. Rochdale, England. A group of weavers in Rochdale, England established the Rochdale Society of Equitable Pioneers in 1844. They sold shares to members to raise capital to buy goods at lower than retail prices, and then they sold the goods at a savings to members. The store is now a museum. In the same year, 1844, in Germany, Victor Huber developed some of the early European cooperative theories, and the idea of credit societies was a part of this effort. Hermann Schultz Delitzsch founded the first credit society in 1850 in Germany. He spent the rest of his life organizing people's banks. Only 9 years after launching his first credit cooperative, there were 183 people's banks, with 18,000 members in the German provinces of East Prussia and Saxony. Friedrich Raifson. He was considered the father of the credit union movement. In 1846, he organized the Hedesdorf Credit Union in Germany. He founded rural cooperatives or loan societies to aid poor farmers. He also organized the first central banking association to meet the liquidity needs of member credit societies. He formed 425 credit societies. Alphonse Desjardins. He operated the first financial cooperative in Canada out of his home. The first deposit was 10 cents, but within 6 years the credit union made loans totaling $200,000 without losing a penny. He continued to organize many credit unions in Canada, and by 1914 there were 150 cooperatives. The first Canadian credit union, Desjardins House, is on the 10-cent Canadian coin. This is the third time ever a Canadian 10-cent coin commemorates a significant historical event. Canadian credit union membership now totals more than 4.9 million. Edward Filene. While traveling in 1907, he discovered financial cooperatives operating in small villages in India. He established the first American credit union, St. Mary's Cooperative Credit Association in Manchester, New Hampshire in 1909. He personally contributed more than $1 million. That would be comparable to donating over $20.5 million today. Pierre J. He was a banking commissioner. He studied unauthorized banking practices in Massachusetts. He became aware of several groups of employees that started their own informal savings without proper legal foundation. He thought they were needed and wanted to recommend a way to make them legal. He was familiar with the writings of Henry Wolff, who wrote People's Banks. From there, he began communication with Alphonse Desjardins. The State Credit Union Act. Jay and Filene helped organize public hearings on credit union legislation in Massachusetts, leading the passage of the first State Credit Union Act in 1909. Fewer than 10 states passed credit union laws, and the growth of the Massachusetts Credit Union Association was very slow. Roy Bergengren. In 1920, Filene hired Massachusetts attorney Roy Bergengren to help seek increased state and federal legislation to promote credit unions. He was a director and co-organizer of the Credit Union National Extension Bureau, the NUNEB, in 1921. He helped launch U.S. movements in international development. Dora Maxwell, one of the original signers of CUNA's Constitution at Estes Park, Colorado. She worked as an organizer for the movement's trade association, the Credit Union National Extension Bureau, and held numerous volunteer positions at the local and national level. Louise Herring, an active supporter, organizer, and champion of credit unions. She was the Ohio delegate to the 1934 National Credit Union Conference in Estes Park, Colorado. Louise Herring believed that credit unions should work in a practical manner to better people's lives. In her own words, the purpose of the credit union is to reform the financial system so that everyone can have a place in the sun. Federal Credit Union Act. In 1934, Congress passed a Federal Credit Union Act which permitted credit unions to be organized anywhere in the United States. The legislation allowed credit unions to incorporate, under either state or federal law, a system of dual chartering that persists today. President Franklin D. Roosevelt signed the Federal Credit Union Act into law in June 1934. November 20th, 1934. An organizational certificate was signed on November 20, 1934 for Morel Employees Federal Credit Union, with the common bond association being employees of John Morel and Company and their immediate families. Credit Union Bill. November 1963. President John F. Kennedy signs the Credit Union Bill into law on International Credit Union Day. The bill allows federal credit unions greater operating flexibility. Also, CUNA prepares to change its name to CUNA International in recognition of its overseas responsibility. Soon after, President Kennedy was assassinated on November 22, 1963. Operation Grassroots. In the early 1990s, banker attacks were countered by Operation Grassroots, a fight-back campaign that culminated in February 91 with a rally that drew almost 13,000 credit union supporters to the Capitol Mall in Washington, D.C. Also in 1991, the opening of the original Southwest branch on West 43rd Street in Sioux Falls. Consumer choice. In 1996, the D.C. Court of Appeals ruled against NCUA's policy allowing credit unions to serve multiple common bonds in one field of membership. The credit union movement rallied support once again, calling the effort the Credit Union Campaign for Consumer Choice. The campaign was successful in gaining a Supreme Court hearing on the field of membership issue. The passage of H.R. 1151, the Credit Union Membership Access Act, was absolutely essential. Also in 1996, we merged in McCook County Federal Credit Union. H.R. 1151. August 7, 1998, President Clinton signed the Credit Union Membership Access Act. This once again allowed federal credit unions to reach out to new members such as small businesses and low-income communities that had been locked out by the narrow U.S. Supreme Court ruling.